just like with the rifle sizing die, the pistol has a sizing die, and you can definitely tell which one's the sizing die with the decapping pin that's in there. We're going to be starting out with brand new Starline 9mm brass. So we don't necessarily have to worry about the decapping feature right now, but we definitely want to size the brass even though it's new. And that goes for rifle or pistol. So we're just going to go ahead and start by screwing in our die. And just like with rifle, we need to raise the ram first and then screw down the die. Now this is a carbide sizing die. That means that unlike the rifle, which is a steel die, this has a carbide ring insert, and you don't do cam over with a carbide sizing die. Otherwise you can crack it. So when we set up the rifle, or if you had a steel sizing die for a 9mm, you could do cam over, but for this one we're not. So we're just going to screw the die down till it just touches the ram. Now we're going to take a brand new piece of Starline 9mm brass. We're going to put it in the shell holder. And I know it's going to fit, but I always just like to check in the case gauge that it fits. And you know that you have a really good fit in a case gauge when the brass just effortlessly falls out. So now I know I have the brass properly sized. Just like with the rifle, you can set the decapping spindle up here, and RCBS recommends that you have it protrude down the bottom by 0.400 inches. Easy way to do that is with your calipers. There's different ways to use your calipers. In this one, what I do is I plunge it. So I take it from the bottom. And that's 0.393, which is pretty close. And that's honestly close enough for me. And a way you can tell is if you have some brass that has primers in it, and we can test it. Good to go. The next die we need to talk about is the bell die, or the die that's basically going to open up the case mouth so we can see the bullet in it. Pistol calibers, or just straight wall calibers in general, have a hard time seating the bullet after you size it. So you have to take the expander die and you need to expand the case mouth just slightly. The way we set up the expander die is we raise the ram, and we're going to screw the die down till it touches and then back it off one full turn. Next, what you have to do is we want to back off the expander plug until it just barely has 2 to 3 threads that are engaged at the top. Now that I have the expander bell just barely in by 2 or 3 threads, now we're going to take a piece of sized brass. It's very important that it's sized. We're going to run it up into the die and we're going to screw down the expander until it just barely touches. Now that it's just barely touching, we're going to lower the expander plug about half a turn. And what we're going to do now is we're going to run the piece of brass into the die, and then we're going to check to see if we've expanded it enough with a projectile. And what we're looking for is for it to basically just pop in and stay. And it's not starting, so I know I need to go another half turn. Every time you make an adjustment, it's in half turn increments. Let's go one more half turn. And now the bullet will just start and it'll pop in. And that's really what we're looking for, just for it to start. So now we know that the expander bell is where it needs to be. And just like with any other die, we're going to run the piece of brass up into the die and then we're going to set the lock rings. And now we have completed the second necessary step for reloading. Now, I don't need to go through the priming and the powder because it's in essence the exact same for single stage loading. You can still do on-stage priming, or you can use the bench-mounted priming system that we talked about with rifle. And the powder, you can absolutely use the same powder dispenser that we talked about with rifle. So if you want, I'll put a card up here and we will refer back to that, and you can look at how we did the priming and the powder. But for now, we're just going to keep moving forward. And now we're going to go over the seating die. The only real difference between this and rifle is that the pistol setup comes with 2 different seating stems. One for a round nose projectile and one for more of like a hollow point style projectile. Now, the projectile that I have right here is kind of like a hybrid. It's more of a round nose than it is a hollow point. So we're going to use the round nose seating stem. The pistol seating die has built-in crimping, and normally I don't like doing crimping and seating at the same time, but for the single stage loading, I find that it works okay. the seating and the crimping on the pistol on straight wall cartridges seems to work a little bit better than it does on bottleneck cartridges. So the way we set this up is we run the ram all the way up, and we're going to screw the die down until it just barely touches, or until you feel resistance on the case mouth. Now that I feel resistance on the case mouth, I'm going to come back out a full turn. And I'm going to go ahead and set the lock ring temporarily right now. Now, the next step is to just barely start the seating stem about 2 or 3 threads. I'm going to place the projectile in the case. I'm going to run the ram up, and I'm going to screw the seating stem down until I feel it contact the projectile. Now that it's made contact, I'm going to go and lower the ram, and I'm going to screw the seating stem down a little bit further so I can initially seat the bullet, so I can start taking measurements to get my overall length. I'm at 1.246, so I'm really long on this one. I'm trying to go to 1.140, so I need to come down 106 thousandths, quite a bit. So I'm going to make pretty broad adjustments here and see if we can do this in as least steps as possible. One 1.191, 1.158, so I'm pretty close now, so my adjustments are going to get a little bit finer. .140, right on the money. So now we need to set up crimp on the brass. Because we backed out the die, there's no contact with the crimp ring that's inside the die. So now we need to set that up. Now that we know our overall length, that's the step we need to do in this process. Now what we're going to do is we're going to back out the seating plug, and then we're going to screw down the die until it makes contact with the brass or into the case mouth. And then we're going to start taking measurements to see how much crimp we've got. We start out by taking a measurement at the base of the projectile in the brass, which roughly comes out to 373, 0.373. So we want to have between 2 and 3 thousandths crimp, so we're trying to get to 0.370 or 0.371, give or take. So we're at 372.5. So we barely just started the crimp. We're at 371. Let's go down one more thousandth. .370, perfect. Now I'm going to run the piece of brass back up and set both lock rings.
And that wraps up our single stage loading videos. What we've gone over is rifle and pistol and how to use we're using new Starline brass, and we're going over sizing. We're going over, so for the rifle we did sizing, we did priming, powder, seating, and crimping. On the pistol, it's very similar except for that second stage in the middle, and that is the expander or the bell sizing. So you can seat the bullet initially into the case. So very similar, just one extra step for pistol. You don't really need to trim pistol brass as you go and you progress into getting once fired or multiple fired brass. So there's pros and cons to dealing with both rifle and pistol. Rifle case prep is more labor intensive than it is with pistol. But so moving forward, we're going to move into progressive presses, and we're also going to show you how to deal with that previously fired or dirty cases. So if you are you went out and bought some new brass and you loaded it, and now you need to, how do you load it now? We're going to go over that. I'm going to show you how I do it. Hopefully I won't be as stuffed up as I am right now, but really excited to start getting into the progressive side of loading. It's a lot of fun, and so when you get into shooting competition, or if you're just going for a fun range day, single stage loading for a pistol, I'd rather just get punched in the face if I'm loading more than 100 rounds. So really excited to move into that. And if you have any questions on what you want to see, like I've had a few people reach out to me, and like I really I enjoy that. You're never going to bother me. Ask a question. You know, what is it that you want to see? What is that you're interested in? I'm going through just a basics right now, and then I'm just going to keep moving forward. And if there's something that you want to see, by all means, let me know. But until next time, have fun, stay safe, and we'll see you at the range. All right.